So in this segment, we're going to be talking about almost 9 million people, almost 1 in 6 adults in Great Britain have not been able to buy essential food items in the past 2 weeks because they have not been available, official research suggests. So we've talked about this stuff before. It's not just down to the HGV driver shortage, it is down to warehousing as well. Also the fact that there is less availability for food as we're struggling to get imports around the country and stuff from farms to supermarkets and processing facilities. So the problems are wide ranging. It's not just down to the driver shortage, but this is just insane. Like, how has it come to this situation where 1 in 6 adults cannot buy essential goods because of the government? Crazy. So the ONS survey, 17% of adults could not buy some food of the grocery products they need between the 22nd of September and the 3rd of October. So this is not about people not being able to buy, their fancy cheeses or wines or whatever. This is about people being unable to buy essential goods because of the government's economic act of Subaku. That's what they've done here. Nearly a quarter of respondents, 23%, told the ONS they have not been able to purchase other essential non-food items. So this is not just down to food prices going up, which they have done. Inflation is ridiculous. This is down to availability. It's not there on the shelf. You cannot purchase it. It's not because they've gone up by £3, £4, £5. It's because the products aren't there. They're not being shipped. Last year we had shortages because people were panic buying because they're clowns. This year we're having shortages because there's no one to bring the stuff to the shops. Meanwhile, 15% reported they have not been able to buy fuel for their vehicles during the fortnight which covered the acute phase of the fuel supply shortage. Thank you, Boris Johnson's government, once again. Those fuel shortages are sort of disappearing a bit, but the issue we're facing now is rising fuel prices for petrol and things like that. So that's fun. The grocery shortages appear to have felt most strongly in the North East and East Midlands regions, that's fun, where a fifth of adults told the ONS they had not been able to buy the items they needed. Why was the area I live in, huh? Almost 2/3 of consumers, 61%, reported noticing some differences in shops compared with usual, which included seeing less variety on the shelves, which that's not great, but it's not the worst thing in the world, less variety, but not having it on the shelves is an issue. In a couple of weeks, depending on when I get to that story, we're going to be talking about how supermarkets have increasingly used cardboard cutouts and pictures to kind of make it look like there's stuff on the shelf when there isn't. Some sort of Metal Gear deception. But yeah, honestly, it's crazy what's going on in the UK right now. And I would honestly, if you live on the continent, if you live in an EU country, if you're in Northern Ireland, for example, let me know how it's going in the supermarkets around you, because honestly, what the hell is going on in the UK? This is just going like, it's just like wow at this point. It's wow. Like, how have you let things got this bad? It's crazy. Supply shortages also affected the availability of medicines or prescriptions, and this one's dangerous because if people have to change their prescriptions, that can have negative side effects on them, especially if the dosage is changed. We've already talked about how pharmacies are in the dark about the government's contingency plans, probably because the government doesn't have contingency plans. But yeah, the fact that people haven't been able to get medicines and prescriptions is very scary. So almost a quarter of adults reporting differences compared with normal, including people having to wait longer to receive their prescriptions, also very dangerous depending on what kind of medication they need. The newly released figures from the ONS follow weeks of reports about gaps on supermarket shelves and the closure of forecourts because of the lack of fuel, and warnings about impact on Christmas supply chains. Supermarkets right now, or shops really right now, want to be stacking up for Christmas because they're going to sell a lot more over the next sort of 2 months. October, November, and into December, so 2.5 months, right? They're going to be stocking a lot more. They can't do that because they don't have the staff to keep things going as is. So, there are multiple stories about, supermarkets, toy retailers saying there are going to be shortages because we don't have the goods. We can't get things in. I think a couple of people have covered the story in, I think it's Felixstowe, where container shippings are being rerouted into Rotterdam and other places because we don't have the lorry drivers to get the goods off the containers and take them wherever they need to go. So they're being rerouted through the EU. So that's more business for Rotterdam now, and less business for Felixstowe. Great stuff there. The newly released figures, ONS following weeks of reports about gaps on supermarket shelves, closures of forecourts because of a lack of fuel, warnings about the impact of Christmas. In response, the government said on Friday it had appointed Sir David Lewis, the former chief executive of Tesco, to be its supply chain advisor. I thought these were just short-term teething issues though. Why do you need to hire a specialist? Why? What's going on here? The supply chain and logistics industry have been saying for some time, they've been saying for I think most of the year, I'm going to say since March, I think I've been hearing about this, that pressures on delivery of food and goods are only likely to increase in the run-up to Christmas, which is the busiest time of year. And you've got to think these lorry drivers are going to have multiple offers, and these haulage firms are going to have multiple offers from different companies, which is going to ramp up the prices, but which will in turn increase costs that will be passed on to us. But it also shows that these companies are benefiting, but these companies having to fight each other essentially for HGV drivers, which means that one of these companies is going to have to go without. If that's a supermarket, it means less food and less other goods. If it's a toy shop, it means less toys. So it's just crazy at the moment, and it's worrying that this survey is very worrying that one in 6 adults in Britain unable to buy essential goods. That means people having to go without, not being able to get the food they need. Especially with prices rising as well. So even if you can get the goods, you're gonna have to pay a lot more. With a universal credit cut, it's a scary place for a lot of people. But this is the nature of the Tory government, and this is why people need to vote and get involved in the system, because at the moment now it's a disaster. Lots of people living in poverty. 1 in 6 adults. Could you imagine being one of those people not being able to get the essential goods you need to survive? No, this isn't about luxury products. This is about essential goods. This is about medication, and people aren't getting them. So I don't know what more to say apart from let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.